The top stories of the week with added depth and context from our team of reporters. Well, we call it the Daily Brief. Hello, everyone. I'm Todd QUINONES. Well, viewers like you ask for more depth, and so here is where exactly you'll find it. So let's jump right in.
Governor Steve Sisolak announcing all businesses will be able to have 100% capacity by June 1st. It's certainly great news for a restaurant I spoke with. It won't be long before restaurants in Nevada can fully open their doors. At Sparrow & Wolf, managing partner John Anthony says turning guests away due to COVID restrictions hasn't been ideal.
And to have to say no as many times as we've had to over the past year and a half has been one of the most hard things that I've ever had to do in hospitality.
He was overjoyed to hear Governor Steve Sisolak announce by June 1st, all businesses in Nevada will be able to fully open to customers. Anthony says he's thrilled to accept more customers soon.
So to be able to say yes to every wish, every desire for the guest, we're just excited about it.
The boost from 50 to 100% capacity means more guests to feed. That also means more employees are needed to handle dinner service.
We're going to get to hire, so I think you're going to see a lot of people who haven't been able to find jobs, that there's going to be a plethora of them that are opening up.
Anthony says he's optimistic about the future and is glad there's no uncertainty this time.
We were never sure of what tomorrow was going to bring, so you were constantly trying to react to it. Now we can be a little more forward thinking.
Governor Sisolak says the mask mandate will remain in place for the time being. Jeremy CHEN, 13 Action News.
Governor Sisolak announced the next steps in reopening the state, and that includes restaurants being able to return to 100% capacity. Thanks for joining us, Jeremy.
Thank you for having me.
So I know you went out and talked to a local restaurant tonight. Just how happy is that restaurant you talked to?
Yeah, we went to Sparrow & Wolf in Chinatown, and they were pretty hopping with only 50% capacity, but I can tell you they were overjoyed to hear when Governor Sisolak basically said on June 1st they can fully reopen, so they can have more tables, more chairs, and serve more customers, and basically go back to basically how everything was normal, I would say about a year and a half ago. So absolutely overjoyed they were.
I know you are a big fan of buffets, and many of the buffets in the local hotels and casinos were forced to close because of the pandemic. Do you think they will reopen now?
I certainly do think we might see some casinos start to announce, hey, our buffet is coming back and whatnot. We already had the Wicked Spoon at the Cosmo already reopened, albeit with the wait staff serving the food. I know Clark County has already submitted plans to allow self-service buffets, which is huge. Because even if a buffet is open, the wait staff has to serve you. It's like cafeteria style, but now with everything opening up, it looks like there's the definite possibility of being able to serve yourself at a buffet, which ultimately is really what everyone wants to do. Just take as much food as they want, as much to their heart's desire.
I'm a fan of buffets too. I totally agree with that statement. How do you think the pandemic has changed the dining scene in Las Vegas? Will it ever go back to the way that it used to be?
Well, just judging by what I saw at Sparrow & Wolf, I think the dining experience might stay the same, more or less, maybe slightly more cleaning. We might see some chefs and servers maybe in masks a little longer because of the mandate. But basically, it seems like everything else is pretty much as gone as it was before. And it seems like there's a lot of pent-up demand to go out and eat, especially for people who might not have felt comfortable going out until they got fully vaccinated. So I don't think, just judging by what I saw at the restaurants I've been to personally, I don't see too much change as far as how people want to eat and whatnot. Maybe just use a little more hand sanitizer from here on in, or maybe be more conscious about washing their hands. But as far as the dining experience of eating the food, I don't think that really has changed too much.
And welcome back to the Daily Debrief, an in-depth look now at the top stories of the week. For more details on any of the stories that we were talking about, just head to ktnv.com.
While the DMV is right now open to the public, its services are not the same before the pandemic started, and it seems it may stay like that for a little longer, including the online appointments. Long lines in person at the DMV branches or a long time waiting for an appointment to happen online are what Nevadans have been dealing with.
I was able to get an appointment, but that was kind of like by a random stroke of chance. But it was definitely very difficult the days prior, actually trying to find an appointment. It was just months and months and months of like grayed out dates. I think someone had canceled.
Hector Funk ended up going to a DMV branch far from his home, but was able to make it and register his car.
I did get there. There was a very long line for people with no appointments. But on the appointment line, it was empty. Like I just walked in.
The DMV says many services can be made online and that showing up in person should be the last resort, and that online appointments will continue to be the norm.
A lot of our transactions are already back to pre-COVID levels, like the new residents, vehicle registrations even. The problem is we have a pent-up demand due to the COVID closure. So it's not a question of just flipping a switch and going back to normal.
So the June 1st full capacity reopening will have no bearing of how it operates for now.
We have to plan this out very carefully. We do have a staffing shortage. We're going to have to hire some people and ramp it up slowly.
The DMV also wanted to remind our viewers to not fall victim of reported appointment online scams. Right now, patience and checking that website constantly is your best option to get an appointment. Reporting from the DMV, ASTRID MENDEZ, 13 Action News.
Now, the state is set to reopen fully in June, on June 1st, but the DMV says it will continue to operate in a limited capacity for now. You may remember the DMV closed fully in March 2020 at the start of the pandemic and then reopened again partially in June. Initially, there were some extensions for people pulled over with expired driver's licenses. Astrid, this is your story today. What happens if you get pulled over now? Is there any leeway?
I guess that it will really depend about what do you call as leeway. The DMV was telling me, you know what, there is no excuse for seeing those cars without license plates or without renewing the registration or even their driver's license. Those are things that you can do online, or even you can get a moving permit, and for that you don't need an appointment. So the fact that, you know, there are a lot of things that maybe cannot be done the way that they were before the pandemic doesn't mean that there are no options. Now, obviously, for some services, you do need to do them in person. You do need an appointment and you need to show up to a branch. But other ones, you can make those online. Some of those you can even make them by mail. And just we have to remember, DMV is more than just licenses and registration. So it really depends of what kind of service you need to get that answer. But so far, they said no excuse for seeing those cars out there without, you know, the legal way that they need to be able to drive and operate here in Nevada.
And we know when the DMV first opened that they were facing a massive backlog. Were they able to provide an update on that? Are they caught up at all?
They've been working digitally in, you know, behind the scenes in getting that backlog. They don't have any particular timeline when that's going to happen, but they are definitely aware that they had a lot of requests even before the pandemic. So now with the pandemic, it just basically grew to a much bigger need that now they're trying to obviously address.
Well, what about people who are finding it hard to book an appointment? Is there alternative resources or somewhere else that they can go?
It's a very interesting answer to that because, you know, like, for example, the people that saw my story, one of the residents that I interviewed, he told me, you know what, I was checking that website constantly and there was nothing. And then one day I checked it and there was like this random appointment and I just took it and grabbed it, right? And that's the case of several people right now. So that's why it's important to cancel an appointment if you're not going to be able to use it. Now, other ways that, you know, that I know that there are people are getting those appointments are by going to like different like companies or services that do provide that for a fee. But we have to remember the appointments at the DMV are free. So if that is an option for you, if you don't want to wait, well, then that is an option for you, but that's not going to be an option for a lot of people. Now, also, one of the things that DMV wanted me to expand on it that I couldn't do that in my story is that, you know, some people are selling appointments online, either through Facebook Market, through Craigslist or other services. And the thing is that if you do that, you're being scammed basically, because you need to put your information to get that online appointment. So actually, not only they have reports about that, but one person showed up with one of those fake appointments, I'm going to call it like that, at one of the branches. And that person was turned away because they were like, this is not legal, this is not right, and we cannot take this as a good thing. So just imagine that person, how it felt, and the amount of time and maybe even money that that spent on this. So I know it's a hard answer. I'm gonna be honest, like I checked the DMV with my stories, with my previous stories before, trying to get see if there was like an appointment available. And I understand the frustration. Sometimes you keep checking, you check in the morning, you check in the day, you check at night, or you check even at midnight, right? And sometimes there's nothing. But I do have seen, and I know that if you're lucky enough, you might be able to get one. I actually checked one today for this story, and there was an appointment for next week at one of the branches, and I was like, oh, like that's interesting, because I haven't seen that, but those are kind of things that are going to start coming up, hopefully more, so more people can go to the DMV in person if they need those services. Now, one more thing, a lot of the services that you may need may be online, so they're definitely saying please check that before even making an appointment. Maybe you can just create a profile, do it online, and you should be good to go. With that being said, I know a lot of people don't have reliable internet, or are not very internet savvy, so it's understandable that a lot of people will need help. But if there are things that you can do online instead of like going or coming to a branch, I'm actually still here, it's something that at least you have an option to. So like I said, patience and luck and just checking that website so far are the best tools at this point. Now, we don't know how things are going to change from now until June 1st. Maybe they're going to be opening up more. Maybe they're going to hire more employees to help the community. Those are things that they're still evaluating and assessing, and hopefully we will get an update. And of course, when that happens, you can tune to us because we will have that information.
Thank you, Astrid. That is really good to know, by the way, about not buying an appointment. You cannot buy an appointment online. So good to know.
And welcome back to the Daily Debrief, an in-depth look now at the top stories of the week. For more details on any of the stories that we were talking about, just head to ktnv.com.
Protecting our pets, animal activists are calling for change at the Las Vegas Metro Police Department.
They say felony animal cruelty cases are taking just too long to solve. 13 Action News reporter KELSEY McFarland explains how they're taking action and how police are responding.
Nevada Voters for Animals created this petition asking Metro Police to add another detective to its felony animal cruelty unit. Right now, the department has one detective in the unit. Rescue organizations claim one person is not enough to bring justice. We want to warn you, some of this video may be disturbing. Nevada Voters for Animals obtained this surveillance video showing a man dragging a dog named Goliath down the street by a leash.
This is a violent crime when someone can do that, because if they can do that to a helpless animal, what can they do to a human?
Gina Greisen is president of Nevada Voters for Animals. She says Goliath was brutally beaten and left for dead in January. He's now recovered, but the question of who did it remains unsolved.
I doubt anyone else would have gone out there and found the surveillance video. They don't have time to go out there and knock on doors and talk to people like we spent all day out there doing. They already only have one, and it's already been how many months?
Nonprofit Vegas Pet Rescue Project says Goliath is just the tip of the iceberg. Volunteer Tina Hayes claims many cases they report go without justice.
Not fair to the animals. It's not fair to those of us who severely care about all these animals.
They cite Honey, a pit bull that lost her life after allegedly being intentionally starved. Mojito died after being sold with parvo. And Harrison, who was malnourished and neglected.
When we reported it, nothing has been done. We're still in the system with Harrison.
Animal control is the first line of defense. It gathers evidence and handles misdemeanor offenses.
As long as the evidence is protected and obtained initially, we're going to be able to follow up with that case.
Robert Siegel is the sole detective for Metro's felony animal cruelty unit. The other detective in the unit left, and budget constraints have delayed a new hire.
But having one doesn't mean that cases aren't investigated. Does it sometimes delay a case getting to the prosecutor? It might, but it doesn't mean that cases are being forgotten or left behind.
Detective Siegel says he handles about 10 cases of felony animal cruelty a month, but helps with cases in other units, and that can create a delay.
All cases are triaged and handled based on the need to immediately get evidence and the egregiousness of the case. When we have cases that are truly egregious or where animals are in danger that we need to remove from a home, we do that day, that moment. And then we do the back-end investigation to make sure that the person is properly prosecuted.
Soon, Siegel will have some critical help.
Due to increased money from the federal government, we do believe that spot is going to be replaced, hopefully in October and November. We're certainly excited to have a second body.
Grayson says it's not soon enough.
I feel like that's too late. You know, these cases are, how long is Goliath's case going to wait? How long are these other cases going to wait? They are our family members. They sleep in bed with us. They go on trips with us, you know, and we want their status elevated and taken seriously when crimes against them are happening.
Animal cruelty is currently a misdemeanor in Las Vegas, according to city code. It's punishable by up to 6 months in jail, a maximum $1,000 fine, or both. Penalties are more harsh under state law. It's a felony to willfully and maliciously torture or kill a pet. That charge is punishable by up to 4 years in prison and a $5,000 fine. Kelsey McFarland, 13 Action News.
The story that you did earlier today, this morning, it's really something that touches a lot of people's hearts and emotion, and that is animal cruelty and abuse right here in the Las Vegas Valley. Now, the story really focused on the lack of an additional detective in that crime unit. Can you just give me a little bit more background on what that lack of an extra officer does to that unit?
It first caught my attention when I saw that petition circulating online asking for the Las Vegas Metro Police Department to hire another detective. At one point, they had two. One left, and due to budget constraints, as I mentioned in the story, they couldn't hire another one. But what they've seen now, animal advocates say that they have seen some delay in cases that they find really, really important. So when they see witnesses not being interviewed or surveillance video not being gathered because maybe there's not enough people on the ground to go door knocking and really spend the day looking into things, because there's just one man for all of the Las Vegas metropolitan area. So they're hoping for two, just so that they can see some faster justice, because they're not liking seeing the delay in the investigations.
We have had citizens reach out and ask us, you know, what can they do? Did Metro give you any suggestions on what the general public can do in these investigations as for help?
Yeah, Metro says that they often have a lot of well-meaning citizens that want to jump in and help them with their investigations, but that it can actually cause a bit of a problem for them, sometimes messing up evidence or getting in the way of the chain of command that is very specific to certain things. They said the best thing that people can do is, if you see something, just say something. You can be their eyes and ears. So rather than gathering evidence for them, maybe take a video if you see something and sending that into the department, or just writing in an email with specific things on what you saw so that they can put their feet on the ground and check it out. Because they said more often than not, when people try to help, sometimes it can do the opposite.
Also, so many people in the community want, you know, they want to help out with these rescues. And, you know, once an animal has been abused and they are rescued, they want to help, but they don't know where to go, what to do. Is there any advice that you learned on how to help out those community organizations that help the abused animals?
Yeah, the rescue that I featured in the story, Vegas Pet Rescue Project, you may also see them during our Pet of the Week segment during the weekends. They often take in these animals that have been abused or neglected, and they put so much money into their medical care trying to get them rehabbed. And to be honest, they've dealt with a lot of grief recently, losing some of these animals when they get to them too late. So the first thing that you can do is just to avoid this getting too far, and you know, these animals getting too far in their medical condition, is the same thing. See something, say something, report it to police. And second, you can check in with them on their Facebook pages. They often write these updates on how their dogs are doing, what they need from the community, whether it be a foster or whether they need medical donations. Sometimes they're just looking for someone to adopt an animal that has recovered from that abuse or from that neglect, Always good to see those happy stories, but they often post really good updates on their Facebook pages on what they need and how you can help.
With the pandemic, there's been so many people stuck at home and staying home and working from home. Has the police said that there's been an increase in these abuse situations happening during the pandemic, or has it actually been the opposite?
Well, police told me in our interview that they've actually seen a decrease in the felony animal cruelty cases. He did say, though, there's a caveat there. It could be because the animal control has changed some of their protocols and how they handle certain cases and how much they take on versus what they are giving that one sole detective. He also said that there is a perception right now that there is more going on, but he claims that that's simply because there's more media attention to it, more social media attention to it, which isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing, of course, to have awareness out there, but it's something that people are interested in and it's something that the media covers. So he says there can be a perception that there's more happening. But if you talk to some of the rescue organizations, they claim they've seen an increase with people getting too frustrated, not having money to properly feed their dogs or their cats, so just letting them go hungry or letting them go long periods of time without having any sort of their medical conditions checked. So two different sides of the story there. Either way, something to keep a very close eye on.
And welcome back to the Daily Debrief, an in-depth look now at the top stories of the week. For more details on any of the stories that we were talking about, just head to ktnv.com.